Angel Reese was older, I would have gotten on her about what she just said. Because I would have been like, how naive can you be?
The WNBA world is having an absolute meltdown right now. And it all centers around Angel Reese's latest announcement. She's not just talking about improving her game anymore. She's declaring war on Caitlin Clark's throne, training with LeBron James's personal trainer, David Alexander, signing up for the Unrivaled League where she'll face the absolute best players on the planet, and making it crystal clear she believes she can surpass the rookie who just rewrote the WNBA record books. But here's what nobody's talking about. This isn't just about Angel Reese chasing Caitlin Clark. This is about Angel Reese potentially destroying her own legacy before it even gets started. Many of you have been saying this for weeks in the comments, and you are onto something. The gap between these two players isn't closing. It might actually be getting wider. And now, Reese is walking into situations that could expose just how far behind she really is. If you believe the story behind the story matters, if you think we need to look past the headlines and understand what's really happening here, smash that like button. It tells us we're on the right track, and it helps us keep digging into the narratives the mainstream won't touch. So let's break down exactly what Angel Reese just signed up for and why this could either be her redemption arc or the moment everyone realizes she was never in Caitlin Clark's stratosphere to begin with. Because connecting the dots here reveals something fascinating. Angel Reese isn't just trying to beat Caitlin Clark on the court. She's trying to beat the narrative that's been building since that 2023 NCAA championship game. And that narrative, it's been brutal. Let's rewind to March 2023, LSU versus Iowa, Angel Reese's Tigers against Caitlin Clark's Hawkeyes. Everyone remembers that moment, Reese hitting Caitlin with the "you can't see me" gesture, taunting her right there on the biggest stage in women's college basketball. At the time, it looked like Reese had won more than just a championship. She'd won the psychological battle. She'd gotten into Clark's head, or so it seemed. But let's filter out the noise and look at what actually happened after that moment. Caitlin Clark didn't crumble. She didn't fade into the background. She came back the next season and broke every scoring record imaginable. She turned Iowa into a basketball powerhouse. She became the most watched player in women's college basketball history. And when both players entered the WNBA, that's when the real gap started showing. Clark averaged 19.2 points per game as a rookie. Reese, 13.6 points. That's a 6-point difference for anyone keeping score. Clark led all rookies with 8.4 assists per game. She was running offenses, creating plays, making everyone around her better. Reese was still figuring out her role, and then came the Rookie of the Year voting. It wasn't even close. Caitlin Clark took that trophy with 66 out of 67 first-place votes. Angel Reese got one single first-place vote. That's not a competition. That's a coronation. But here's where things get interesting. Instead of accepting that gap, instead of quietly working to close it over the next few seasons, Reese is making noise. Big noise. She's training with David Alexander, the same trainer who works with LeBron James. She's joining the Unrivaled League, a 3-on-3 competition featuring 34 of the best players in the world. And she's getting paid $250,000 for 8 weeks of work, which is more than triple her entire WNBA salary. On paper, this looks like ambition. This looks like a player who refuses to be second best. But reading between the lines reveals something more complicated. Angel Reese is putting herself in situations where she can't hide anymore. 3-on-3 basketball is relentless. It's fast-paced, high-intensity, and there's nowhere to disappear when things aren't going your way. In the WNBA, you can have a bad game and still contribute. You can focus on rebounding or defense and still provide value. But in 3-on-3, you better bring offense, defense, and clutch gene all at once, because there's no bench to retreat to.
We've ever lost in our life. I only lost 7 games in my last 2 years at LSU. So it's been hard for me, but adjusting and just kind of have that mindset of just moving on has been something I try to give myself a little bit of grace.
Reese herself admitted how difficult the transition to professional basketball has been. She only lost 7 games in her last 2 years at LSU. Winning was her normal. Losing was foreign. And the WNBA, it's been a harsh reality check. Her Chicago Sky team struggled all season. She dealt with criticism about her game, her attitude, her constant complaints about salary, and through all of it, Caitlin Clark just kept winning, kept making headlines, kept proving why she was the #1 story in women's basketball. So now Reese is trying to change the narrative. The David Alexander training sessions are about more than just improving her game. They're about proving she's serious, that she's elite, that she deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as Caitlin Clark. But here's the problem. Training with LeBron's guy doesn't automatically make you LeBron. Working on general movement patterns sounds impressive, but Caitlin Clark isn't dominating because of her footwork. She's dominating because she has vision, basketball IQ, and a killer instinct that can't be taught in a gym. And then there's the Unrivaled League. This isn't some summer exhibition where everyone takes it easy. This is legitimate competition with legitimate stakes. Players are getting paid real money, the games will be televised, and Angel Reese is going to be sharing the court with players who have proven themselves at the highest levels of international basketball. Players who won't care about her LSU championship or her Instagram following or her Reebok shoe deal. They're going to care about one thing. Can she ball? That's the question everyone's been asking since she entered the WNBA. Can Angel Reese actually perform when it matters against elite competition? Her college dominance was real. Her rebounding numbers are impressive. But when you stack her up against Caitlin Clark, against Breanna Stewart, against A'ja Wilson, the gap becomes painfully obvious. She's not in that tier yet. And the scary part for Reese, this unrivaled league, might prove she never will be. Because here's what many of you have already figured out. This isn't about Angel Reese catching Caitlin Clark anymore. That ship might have already sailed. This is about whether Angel Reese can establish her own legacy separate from the constant comparisons. Can she be a star in her own right without constantly measuring herself against someone who's already miles ahead? That's the real question. And the next few months are going to give us the answer. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe Angel Reese can actually close the gap with Caitlin Clark? Or is this unrivaled league move going to expose how far behind she really is? I'm genuinely curious where you all stand on this because the WNBA community is completely divided right now. Drop your thoughts below. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, money. Angel Reese has been incredibly vocal about her WNBA salary, complaining that her $73,439 yearly paycheck barely covers her expenses. She's talked about how expensive life is, how hard it is to make ends meet, how the league doesn't pay its players enough. And look, there's validity to that conversation. WNBA salaries are lower than they should be given the product these athletes deliver. But here's where Reese loses people. She's out here talking about financial struggles while posting luxury lifestyle content on Instagram, while signing endorsement deals with Reebok, while building a media brand that's already generating income streams most WNBA players will never see. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark is handling her business quietly. She's getting paid. She's getting endorsements, but she's not complaining. She's not making her financial situation part of her public narrative. She's focused on basketball, on winning, on being the best player she can be. And that difference in approach, it matters. Because when you're constantly talking about how hard your life is while simultaneously living better than 99% of Americans, people start tuning you out. They start questioning whether you're actually struggling or just looking for sympathy. And this unrivaled league opportunity, it's a perfect example of the disconnect. Reese is getting paid $250,000 for 8 weeks of work. That's more than triple her annual WNBA salary in less than a quarter of the time. That's life-changing money for most people. But instead of framing it as an incredible opportunity, instead of focusing on the competition and what it means for her development, the narrative keeps circling back to how she deserves more, how the system is broken, how she's been undervalued. At some point, you have to stop complaining and start proving you're worth the investment. Let's get real about what the Unrivaled League actually represents for Angel Reese. This isn't just about the money or the exposure, this is about validation. She needs to prove to the basketball world that she belongs in the conversation with the elite players, that her college success wasn't a fluke, that she can compete at the highest levels when the lights are brightest. But here's the brutal reality. The Unrivaled League is filled with players who have already proven that Breanna Stewart, Nafisa Collier, Kelsey Plum. These are WNBA champions, Olympic gold medalists, players who have performed on every stage imaginable. Angel Reese is walking into that environment with exactly one thing on her resume, an NCAA championship where she played incredible team defense and grabbed rebounds at an elite level. That's it. She doesn't have a WNBA championship. She doesn't have an Olympic medal. She doesn't have a track record of performing in high-stakes professional games. What she has is potential. And potential is great when you're 21 years old and just starting your career. But potential doesn't win games. Performance does. And right now, the performance gap between Angel Reese and the players she's about to face is significant. Multiple sources are whispering about tension behind the scenes, about players who are skeptical of Reese's ability to contribute at the level this league demands, about concerns that she's coming in with too much hype and not enough substance. We're getting into rumor territory here, but the breadcrumbs lead to a situation where Reese is going to have to prove herself all over again. And if she struggles, if she gets exposed by the 3-on-3 format, that narrative about challenging Caitlin Clark dies permanently. Because here's what you all have been saying in the comments for months now. Angel Reese keeps talking like she's already elite, but her game doesn't back it up. She averaged 13.6 points per game on 39% shooting in her rookie season. Those aren't numbers that scream future superstar. Those are numbers that say solid role player with room to grow. And there's nothing wrong with being a solid role player. Most WNBA players fall into that category. But you can't be a solid role player and simultaneously claim you're going to dethrone the player who just won Rookie of the Year in a landslide while breaking assist records and leading her team to the playoffs. The cognitive dissonance is staggering. Reese wants the recognition that comes with being elite without putting in the years of work required to actually become elite. She wants to skip the development phase and jump straight to legacy building. But basketball doesn't work that way. Caitlin Clark didn't become Caitlin Clark overnight. She spent years mastering her craft, developing her shot, learning to read defenses, building the basketball IQ that makes her special. Angel Reese is trying to shortcut that process by training with famous trainers and joining high-profile leagues. But shortcuts don't exist at this level. What happens if Angel Reese struggles in the Unrivaled League? What happens if she averages single digits in scoring and gets outplayed by veterans who understand 3-on-3 basketball at a level she hasn't reached yet? Does she make more excuses? Does she complain about the format or the referees or the way the league is structured? Or does she finally accept that she's not where she thinks she is and commit to the long-term development required to actually get there? That's the defining question of her career right now. And honestly, based on everything we've seen so far, I'm not confident she's ready to accept that reality. She seems more interested in managing her brand, building her social media presence, and talking about how great she's going to be than actually putting her head down and doing the unglamorous work of becoming great. And that's a problem, because at some point, the talking has to stop and the performance has to start. If you found this breakdown valuable, if you're tired of the surface level takes and want to understand what's really happening in the WNBA, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're going deep on the Unrivaled League as it unfolds, and you're not going to want to miss what happens when Angel Reese finally has to put up or shut up. Next video, we're breaking down the complete Unrivaled League roster and predicting which players are going to dominate and which ones are going to get exposed. You already know which category I think Reese falls into. Angel Reese's plan to surpass Caitlin Clark isn't threatening Clark's legacy, it's threatening her own. Because the higher she raises expectations, the harder the fall is going to be when reality sets in. And reality, it's coming fast.